Imagine spending your entire life chasing a dream, only to discover that reality itself is just an illusion. This is the strange and fascinating world that Michelle Weaver finds herself in. In this world, the rules are vastly different from our own. The story begins with Michelle having a vivid dream. She envisions herself becoming the manager of the hotel where she works. She's convinced that today is the day she'll finally get the job. With determination in her heart, she meets with her boss, Reginald. Reginald seems hesitant to give her the promotion, but Michelle is confident and persuasive. She reminds him that she's worked at the hotel for years and knows it inside out. She's the most deserving person for the job, she argues. To drive her point home, Michelle tells Reginald a story about a clever clerk who used to impress people with his witty conversations. Reginald can't help but chuckle at the anecdote, and Michelle's cleverness shines through. "I see you're a smart girl, just like that clerk," Reginald says with a smile. "The job is yours." Reginald hands Michelle a special pen, a symbol of her new role as manager. Michelle is over the moon with happiness, having worked at the hotel for many years. The staff gathers around to congratulate her, beaming with pride that she's their new boss. As she starts her new job, Michelle meets two unhappy guests at the reception desk. They're complaining about not getting the room they wanted. Michelle listens carefully and then surprises them with the best room in the hotel. The guests are thrilled, and the staff is impressed with how well Michelle handles the situation on her first day. During her coffee break, Michelle shares the good news with her husband, Carl. He's delighted and says he always knew she could do it. They both decide to celebrate her achievement, but suddenly Michelle's health takes a turn for the worse. Everything around her becomes blurry and her ears start ringing. When she opens her eyes, she's shocked to see that everyone around her has stopped moving. They're all staring at the sky, frozen in place. Michelle is terrified. She rushes out of the hotel and sees a strange circular machine hovering in the sky. The machine seems to be controlling people's minds, making them freeze. Michelle shouts, "Why isn't anyone running away? What's happening?" She's the only one who can move, and she's desperate to find out what's going on. She looks around, hoping to find someone who can help her, but everyone is frozen in place. Should we really be running away from this strange situation? Michelle thought to herself. But before she could make sense of anything, a woman approached her and asked, "How long will you stay in downtime?" Michelle was confused. "What do you mean?" she asked. But the woman didn't respond. Instead, she stared at the strange machine, and her body froze. It was as if her soul had left her body. She quickly turned around and ran towards her home, trying to escape the eerie feeling. As she ran, we are introduced to a narrator who tries to explain this strange world to us. He says that Michelle has worked hard for years to reach this point in her life, the narrator said. But now her world is about to change. She's starting to realize that this world isn't the whole truth. As Michelle ran, she came across a policeman. She stopped and asked him, "Can you tell me what's going on here? What should we do?" The policeman seemed calm and unbothered. "It's just the day of maintenance," he said. "We were informed about it. Don't you remember?" But as soon as he looked up at the sky, he too froze, just like everyone else. As soon as Michelle walked through the front door, she was frantic. She had been searching for her husband, Carl, everywhere. But when she finally found him, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Carl seemed perfectly fine, which was a huge comfort. But Michelle's anxiety soon returned. "Carl, something's going on outside," she said, her voice shaking. "People are stopping in their tracks, staring up at the sky. There's a weird circle up there." Carl looked at her calmly, but then his demeanor suddenly changed. He started speaking in a thick Irish accent, which caught Michelle off guard. "Ah, yes, I had forgotten it was today. They told us about this, didn't they?" Michelle abacked by Carl's sudden transformation. "What's going on, Carl? What's happening today?" she asked, confusion etched on her face. Carl smiled mysteriously. "The time has come to awaken, Michelle. This is the signal power. We can stop this charade now. It's time to go." Michelle was lost. "I don't understand what you're talking about, Carl. Where are we supposed to go?" Carl looked at Michelle and said, "My name is Diane." Michelle was shocked. "No, you're my husband, Carl," she replied, her voice firm. But Carl, or Diane, just smiled and said, "You're kidding, you are Lowell." Then he turned to Michelle and said, "It's time to go." Michelle was terrified. As she ran after him, she saw that Diane, or Carl, was no longer responding to her. He had stopped in his tracks, staring up at the sky like everyone else. Michelle was alone and scared. She ran back into her house, locking the door behind her. But to her surprise, two boys appeared in her living room. Michelle was frightened and grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter, holding it up to defend herself. but the boys didn't seem to care. They approached her calmly and said, "Don't be afraid, we're not going to hurt you." They tried to reassure her, and as they spoke, the knife in Michelle's hand suddenly disappeared. They turned on the TV and started playing a video footage. Michelle's eyes widened as she saw images of people, including her husband Carl, frozen in place, staring up at the sky. The footage explained that this world was not real. It was a computer simulation, an artificial world created by someone or something. The two boys explained to Michelle that the people she saw around her, including her husband Carl, were not real. They were just characters, like in a video game. In the real world, humans could use a special device to connect to these characters and experience a life they couldn't have in reality. "This world is like a fantasy," one of the boys said. "There's no violence, and we live in a luxurious society. You can be anyone you want to be, do anything you want to do. It's like a dream come true." Michelle was stunned. She had heard of this concept before in movies like The Matrix, but she never thought it was real. The boys told her that her character, Michelle Weaver, was being controlled by a man named Lowell. When humans reached a certain level, they could create their own characters, designing them to be whatever they wanted. Then an avatar of that character would be created in this simulated world, where they could live a life just like a real person. But there was one rule. Once you started playing, you couldn't leave your character. You had to live a separate life in the simulation and then return to your real world when the day was over. Michelle's eyes blazed with anger as she confronted the two boys. "You're telling me that everything I know is a lie? That my whole life is just a joke? I'm just a character?" The boys nodded solemnly. "Yes, Michelle. You're a character created by Lowell, a man from the real world." Michelle's face twisted in rage. "If that's true, then why don't I remember anything? Last night when Lowell was in the simulation, he had a heart attack. He's currently in a coma." Michelle's anger faltered, replaced by confusion. "What does that have to do with me?" "Well, normally, when a player's character is logged out, they remember who they are and are relieved to know that this world isn't real. But because Lowell is in a coma, you've forgotten everything. This is the first time it's happened in the system and we're trying to fix it. If we can't log you out safely, we'll have to do it forcefully." Michelle started crying when she heard this. She said, "I'm not Lowell. I'm Michelle Weaver. I've worked hard to achieve my dreams, and now you're telling me that it's all not true?" Michelle was not ready to believe this. It's like someone telling you that your whole life is not real. It's just a game. You wouldn't believe it, right? So Michelle's creators sent someone special to talk to her. In emergency situations, players can talk to one person. In this case, it was Ellen, Lowell's wife. They had been married for 15 years and had 2 kids. Ellen wanted to talk to Michelle alone. She tried to remind Michelle of Lowell, but Michelle didn't remember anything. Then Ellen said, "If Lowell doesn't wake up soon, we'll lose him forever." Ellen said, "I can feel Lowell's power inside you, so come with me. The kids are waiting for you at home." Michelle was still crying and didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to believe or who to trust. Michelle and Ellen sat quietly, looking at a ball. They had 20 minutes left before the downtime was over. Michelle was convinced she had made the right decision, but then she changed her mind. She didn't want to log out of the simulation anymore. Ellen had already sent the people away, so Michelle ran away from there. She begins to hide herself, waiting for the downtime to end. She hoped that it was all just a bad dream and that everything would be fine again when the downtime was over. Michelle rushed to her hotel room and hid inside, but the customer service people were looking for her. They wanted to make her log out of the simulation. Michelle was scared and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, a pigeon came into her room and started making loud noises. The customer service people found her. Michelle ran away to the hotel terrace where she met Tom, the customer service manager. Tom said sorry to Michelle for the problem in the simulation. He told her that he fixed small problems like this every day, but what happened to her was the worst. Tom looked at Michelle with a serious expression. "If you want, you can live in your own world," he said. Michelle's eyes widened as she revealed her true identity. "I want to go back," she said, her voice firm. Tom nodded sympathetically. "I'm afraid that's not possible now. Lowell's life support has been removed, and if you disconnect from here, there's no way for your mind to connect with the real world. But," he added, "if you want, you can eliminate forever by logging out before the downtime. You can die, or you can become a special character in the simulation, a Michelle who no one will control. You'll be the owner of your own will if you sign the contract form." Michelle's eyes were wide with shock, but Tom continued, "Before you die, remember to follow the base rules. Always stay in character." With that, he turned and left. As soon as he was gone, the downtime was over, and millions of players from all over the world logged back into the simulation. The ball that had appeared in the sky has disappeared, and everything went back to normal. Michelle returned to her hotel, but she knew the truth now. This world was not real. But as she walked into the lobby, she saw Ellen waiting to book a room. Michelle smiled and welcomed her, and it seemed like she had finally accepted her identity. She was going to live a good life in this simulated world, and she was ready to make the most of it. And with that, the story came to an end. Michelle had found her truth, and she was ready to live with it.